Hi, this is Summer Kennard, and I'm the author of Such is the Kingdom, A Practical Theology of Disability, and of the forthcoming book, Our Autistic Home, which is coming out from Parkend Books sometime in the next couple of months, as soon as I finish it. So, um, because we are an all autistic home, sometimes we also still have some challenges that we can't always foresee, like growth spurts and things like that, that I will be talking about later. Growth spurts is in the G section of the ABCs. But one of the things that happens is that when someone's growth spurting, sometimes you have to make adjustments. So maybe today is AAC and adjustments. Today I want to talk to you about something called AAC for our ABCs of our autistic home. So AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. Talk about a mouthful, especially for people who are not necessarily verbal or who have um, a sort of situational mutism or partially verbal, sometimes challenges speaking whenever we're tired or emotional. And there's also some of us who just maybe have working memory issues. Today, I'm going to talk about AAC not only as something that can help people who are nonverbal, but as something that just helps everyone who's autistic sometimes. Um, But particularly today, I wanna focus on some things that we can do right away. So this is I'm calling it part 1 of the AAC section because I want to talk more in detail about systems that can help you, AAC systems like vocabulary boards, for instance, and pods and talkers, things that you push and where it has a speech output device. Those are also AAC. And these sorts of systems can build language and communication and can build an entire language system that is not verbal. So that's really cool. And that's going to be the second video on AAC. Today, I'm going to talk about some simpler ones that types of AAC that you can start with right away. So let's say your child's just now diagnosed, or you're just now hearing about the possibility of having all type of communication that's not verbal. You may be just entering into a system with your therapist or with your team, and you don't want to mess it up. So these are things that won't mess up your therapy. You could just add them on. And the first thing I want to talk to you about is probably the simplest for most people, especially if your kid has the ability to control their motor abilities somewhat. And that is buttons. So buttons are great. These are recordable speech buttons. And around our house, we have a few of these that they're not always in use at all times, but we just put them up with this is commanded picture hanging strips. And then you can pull them on and off the wall if you need to re-record. And these are the 8-second recordable answer buzzers that you can get. And I've linked it in my blog post that goes with this. Whenever this video is over, I'm going to just drop this video into the blog post, and it's going to be the top thing on my website, which is summerkennard.com. So let me type this over here for you in the comments, and it will be at the top. There you go. Now I want to show you how this works. So whenever you talk about speech output buttons, you don't want to overwhelm someone and say, okay, you have to do everything by buttons, because that's okay, but most people don't want to do that. We have other ways to build a full language system for humans is a lot more efficient. One thing that I do know has happened recently is that with the pandemic and some dog owners being stuck at home for a long time, some people have trained their dogs to use these buttons, and then they're like, "Oh, it's just training of like I could train my dog to talk," and I'm like, "Oh wow," and it can be a little condescending and even dehumanizing the way that people can talk about these buttons. But in fact, usually what you do with humans is you use these for particular purposes. So these buttons are for especially effective for a type of intervention called parent initiated intervention, where you want to pick one small thing that you want to focus on to help build communication. So in my family, I have a couple of things that I've tried, and some have been more successful than others. This one, the help button, is probably our most successful long term. We started doing a help button, I don't know how many years ago, and we had at one point 3 of my 5 children were nonverbal. And now we still have some situational mutism. The language around this is so dumb. It just means if you get really overwhelmed, you can't talk. And as an adult autistic person, sometimes I'm like, well, yeah, that's normal. So it's just, it makes it sound like very medical, but it's really just part of what happens when you have a complex brain that sometimes gets little traffic jams in it. So a help button does like this. This is what you do. Again, I have this up. I've had it up in a lot of places central to the house. And right now, if as you may see, if you go to my accessible prayer corner tutorial, it's up in our prayer corner because you could use it for prayers as well. It's also a prayer, but also it helps other in general for humans who are present around you, your family members. So you just push the button. I need help. And it's not super sensitive, but it also I need help. If you don't have full motor control and you bang, it's not going to break it, is what I'm trying to demonstrate here. You can hit it or touch it. It's not super, super sensitive. So you have to be able to push a little bit for this, but you don't have to use your hand. If you can hit it with your arm or whatever, this is good. So I need help. This is a really great training device, in part just because one thing autistic people tend to not automatically do is ask for help. So that's helpful. But also, it's a good thing to model. So, um, anytime you're going to use an augmentative or alternative communication, you don't just like stick it on the wall or put it in a notebook and say, "There you go, kid, have at it." Okay. If you're going to help develop communication with somebody, communication takes two people at least. So you're going to model it and you're going to use it yourself. So if I am trying to help a kid to understand that they can ask for help and maybe they're going to have a meltdown because they don't know how to ask for help and they're frustrated, right? And especially if it's one of the kids who's having either is still nonverbal or has become nonverbal or is, for whatever situation, it can be really hard for them to be like, what's going on with me? So, a lot of times we can help each other. I need help. So what I would do is I would go and I would have this up on a wall or something, and I would be like, "Oh, I can't get that myself. I need help. I need help. Can you help me?" So I'm going to say it because I can, and I'm going to model pushing it and then engaging getting the engagement of or the help that I need. So this one's really simple, but it can be abstract if someone doesn't exactly know what help means. But if you model it over time, the goal is that you focus on one thing and over time it builds out. Now, since this is not so specific, this may be almost too meta for some kids. So then we want to get back to something basic. And this one is better for that. And I actually had if you have another child in your family or another person in your family who's of the same age to make the recording, it's kind of nice because it makes it feel more like the person is speaking for themselves to have somebody who has a similar voice. So this one was recorded by one child for the sake of another in my family. So, and it says, "Oops, watch. Is it even going to work?" As it's jammed after all that I said that. What did I do? I have to go potty. Sorry. This one was loved to death. They have thrown it downstairs and so on. So this has been beaten up very badly and it's still working. It's kind of impressive. So this one says, "I have to go potty." And we had this right outside the bathroom door. And it is a way to say, "Hey, I need help in the restroom." It is very specific and targeted. So in that way, it can help build communication. We had one child for a while that was getting stuck at the getting started on the potty part of the thing. And so this really helped to transition. So this was very targeted in that way. So you can make these as targeted as you want. You could also have it be something like this. Like if you have a game that you like to play, you can have this set down right by the game. I want to play. I want to play. Now, this wasn't just playing in general because kids usually will just play, right? But we have this put up right by one of my kids' favorite puzzles. So he has to ask for help with that. And if he pushes the button, I want to play, then he can play with it. The other thing is that we had one kid for a while. We've used this one in several different ways. So I'm going to tell you about it. We had one kid who wanted to play with the other kids when they were playing a game, but didn't know how to ask to join the play. So if you see someone else playing something and you want to, I want to play. You don't have to come up with the words for that if you're overwhelmed. You could use it that way too. Now, the cool thing about these are the really short speech buttons. They record 8 seconds. Trying to think of what's the longest thing that I've recorded on one of those. I think I think I recorded a prayer, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy on it. Something like that. But not a whole lot of speech, right? There are also 20-second speech buttons, and I have one of those also demonstrated in my prayer corner tutorial. But then there are these, which are 80-second speech buttons, and they come in different shapes. And these are linked in my blog post that I'll be putting up at the end of this video. They come in squares and hexagons, and they're really cool for doing longer things. Like, what did I do on this one? Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rock. You can like record a favorite song on it. You could also record if there's something that you're trying to memorize or you want your child to be familiar with, whether that's like a family motto or a song you're learning or a Christmas carol or like a prayer or anything that you in your family find important and you need a little bit more time for that. You can do this. It's not as good usually. I wouldn't use this for verbal instructions. Now, I mean, I guess you could, but most people who are having a challenge talking or having a working memory issue are also not going to really be able to jump right into audio processing that quickly. That's something like this is. But if you do want to have, if somebody wants you to say something over and over again, like if they have a favorite, let's say that your kid really loves a particular tongue twister. So you can then go on here. These are great because on the back they have an on and off and they have a record or play. So to record it, you press it down and record. So rubber baby buggy bumpers, rubber baby buggy bumpers. Okay, then you push it to play. Rubber baby buggy bumpers, rubber baby buggy bumpers. Okay. Rubber baby buggy bumpers. It kept going. So you could do whatever you want on here. So it can be something that's fun. It doesn't have to just be practical. Like, I can't find my sweatshirt. Although, okay, that may be a thing. If in your family you have someone who's like, let's say you have a working memory issue and your kid really wants to do his own shoes or something like this. You can be all like, maybe you keep their shoes in. You could label this. These are cool because you could put a picture in there that has shoes, for instance, and you can just make a recording like this. Oops, I turned it off. First, you turn it on. Your shoes are under the table. Your shoes are under the table. Or even better, since you're modeling things, right? So you're going to be like this. My shoes are under the table. My shoes are under the table. So then that way, someone with working memory challenges who wants to find something, if they're able to audio process, then this would be a really great way to remind them without having to ask all the time, where are my shoes? Or like, where did I put my Legos? Or where's my iPad? My iPad's on the charger. My iPad's on the charger. My iPad's on the charger. Maybe they need it. And then they can go and do that over and over again. And it helps them to feel like they're helping themselves. So in anything that I tell you about like supports for autistic people, the goal is self-regulation. And it doesn't matter how much cognitive ability you have, there's always that desire to be able to do things and be able to exercise as much ability in your body as you can. And so this is something that really helps, and that can alleviate stress because it helps. It's not that depending on other people is a bad thing. It's that being able to express your will is a good thing. So that doesn't mean that we have to, it doesn't in any way, there's one of those things, sometimes people say, well, isn't it okay to work together? And yes, it is, but this is going to help. And also whenever you get to do the thing that you can do, it's empowering and it can build up it can build up your neural pathways and help you to seek your goals and to communicate. And it's a good thing. So we'll talk more about some of those things, like what happens with AAC and how this helps with the other video about the whole language thing. And see, I did one more thing on this one. If you have a favorite book. So I put on here favorite book. Please read me my favorite book. Please read me my favorite book. Now, this is a lot of words. So these with the longer words, this is more advanced stuff. Okay, I want to make that clear. If you have a kid who is Emerging verbal are still kind of nonverbal, and they haven't started to model sentences to you using their other AAC long sentences. Just use 2 words like or 3 words like this. If I had a child who was still at that stage, who was trying to develop or redevelop language, like let's say after a brain injury, then I would use fewer words. I would do this. Favorite book, please. Except for I wouldn't say favorite book.
Favorite book, please.
What I would do is I would find the name of their favorite book or whatever we called it. Like, let's say my kids really love the Mo Willems Elephant and Piggy books. So one of those is called Waiting is Not Easy or Let's Go for a Drive. And for a while, that was a favorite book. So I would say, let's go for a drive, please.
Let's go for a drive, please.
And then the child can request, or whatever age person can request that you read that aloud to them, or that they can watch the YouTube video of it, or whatever your routine is. One of the good things about people in the education and library worlds, one of the many good things is, and in the book world, is that there are a lot of story times recorded on YouTube by teachers and librarians, and with permission from publishers and authors. So it's really a lovely way to build up language and communication and interest. So that's cool. So this is some of the ways you can use these buttons. The other thing I want to do, I don't have the thing to show you, but I ran out of time. I needed to go live tonight because I'm on a schedule right now. My printer didn't work, so I need to go and fix that, but it's going to take a while. So I'm going to tell you about something, and then when I get a chance, I will go ahead and make you one of these, and I'll put it up on the web on my blog post. I don't have it up there now. I have the other thing I'm going to tell you about though. And that is, the second thing is a same foods chart. So same food is this term coined by the autistic community. And I don't even know who coined it. I've only found blog posts talking about the fact that everyone uses this idea. So same food is the way that we talk about our preferred foods that we'll eat over and over again. And I think it was a Facebook Live where I talked about this, not a YouTube, but I talked about having a same food drawer, or in this case, I have this, with some snacks that are really just accessible at all times. So these are some same foods that work in my family. Some of the textures that are preferred, and where a person will just reliably eat them and feel like they're food. I know that it may be difficult for neurotypicals to understand this, but some things just don't seem like food. And whenever you have a set of things that are food to you, then it's nice to have those around. So what you want to do is you take the favorite foods, the most common foods and drinks, and you make a chart of this. And it needs to be a visual chart. You could either make it drawings or pictures. So you could just take some snapshots and print them off your phone, on your phone, and then print them out of just your family member's favorite food, and put those up on, tape them up on the fridge or whatever, so that your family member can point to them. So if it's a little kid, don't put it up high so they can't reach it. Put it at their level, however tall the person is. And if it's a big kid, same thing, put it up high, not low. You don't want to have to get on the floor to find which food you want. So this is a good idea for communicating, not just when you're hungry, but what kind of food do you want? So if you put it on your fridge, or if you have a snack drawer or a pantry area where you keep a lot of the snacks. And this varies a lot by person. Some people's same food is yogurt, so it's in the fridge, and some people's same food is protein bars, so it's in a drawer. Yep, just wherever it is. Put up this chart someplace central where it's easy to get to, where they can ask. Also, I really think it's a good idea in most cases to make it accessible. So, because whenever you're the person, you want to be able to express when you're wanting to eat, right? So it's nice to allow people, or not allow, but to support people in their autonomy and their desire to do things. So you do that. And then another thing is, if somebody is still limited verbally, but wants to is able to, in their working memory and so on, participate in taking this a step further, you can actually make a magnetic or a press on grocery list where the person can be in charge of their same foods. Like, I'm almost out of bars, so I'm going to take that picture of that bar and put it on the grocery list. And then, like with double stick tape or like a post-it note type sticky back, um, let them put that up there, and then now you know to make sure to buy it. But it's like taking ownership and being able to express yourself. So like, I wanted to show you this. Like, you can build the life skills everywhere from like, I'm hungry. You can make a button that says I'm hungry or I'm thirsty, or have a chart where you can touch the food. And anyway, if you do this, if you do have a chart, just like with a button, you say it again and you model it, you would also do the same thing with your visual chart. So you'd be like, oh, I want pizza. So if somebody touches the pizza picture, you would say, I want pizza. Oh, you want pizza? You would repeat it and you would use it. And when you went to the thing and you were like, I'm thirsty, I want water, you would touch it. So it's always you're demonstrating how it's used, and it's normal. And by making it normal, it helps people to mirror each other. And there's all sorts of cool things that brains do whenever you are able to share attention, and growing your neural connections and things like that. So it's a good thing on a lot of levels to use these systems. And it grows with you. So it can grow from thirsty, a button that says thirsty, to a chart where you pick which drink you want, to helping to pick out the grocery list. Like, this doesn't have to be just one thing. You can build it over time. The other thing I want to tell you about, that's the same foods thing. That's just like another like easy drop it into place and use it now AAC thing. And in a lot of ways, I think it's probably better if you go ahead and just use pictures of your favorite foods. The drawings are usually pretty bad. I think that's the main reason I haven't made a chart of it. Then the last thing is a simple visual schedule. In this case, the simplest kind is actually not the kind that goes down or goes across and it has a whole bunch of sequences. But if you have someone who is new to, um, sorry, my daughter was yelling at me for no reason, so I got a little confused. My husband's on it. She knows where I am. I just got confused. I went in to listen out for her. The simplest visual schedule is not actually a sequence schedule, but a first then schedule. So I've put one together for you, and I've put it on my website. And it will be available as soon as this is over. I'm just going to drop it in. And it's a printable from a site called widget.com. So when you click on the link, it's going to automatically download this printable. It's not a virus. It's just a printable. And it is, I don't remember how many pairs I put up there, but it's interchangeable. So what you do is it would go across. Let me see, I have this piece of paper. Oh, that's not plain. Wow, me. I thought I had this. Let's see. It's an 8.5 by 11 paper. This is the printer fail thing. And one side's going to say first and the other side's going to say then. And then you can cut it in half and put that into a 4-ring binder where it has, 2 holes at each side. And then you could rearrange them and flip it. So everything that I listed on there has both a first and a then attached to it. So whether you're making it be the first part of a pair or the second part, you can do it. And that way you're going to be able to get through most of your day. And because I also do prayer resources, I put some prayer things on there too. But of course, if you're not religious, you can skip those. But it has going throughout a day, some things that somebody might need to do, like study time, different types of sensory breaks, meals, pajamas, hygiene issues, and like therapy time, all sorts of stuff like that. Also entertainment. So I put a lot of things on there, and I want you to go and see that. It's pretty simple to use, but you basically, with the first then, you'll talk to like I said, if you're new to this, your therapist may try to tell you, oh, let's do this hard thing first and then the less hard thing. And I understand why they say that. They're trying to make a reward at the end. But think about humans. That's really a kind of a dumb idea to do that, because first then is a cognitive load manager primarily. It's not primarily a reward system. And I think it will backfire on you big time if you use it that way. So I know people will say that because in a clinical setting, when they're with someone for 20 minutes, they're like, oh, look, I got this skill set for them. And I'm like, no, you didn't. That's going to backfire massively. So don't do that to your kid and don't do it to yourself. When we do first then, what you do is you use it as a cognitive load and memory manager, especially for someone with low working memory or who's emerging verbal or who has coordination issues that may make them have to keep on, like, whatever's going on in their brain development, if they have to keep on referring back to something to check in multiple times in the course of a decision, you're going to want to do it this right way. So I'm going to write a little first then, since I don't have my this is my printer didn't work. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about because it's a little weird to just imagine this. But basically, the flip chart will work like this. And honestly, if you want to cut these out and just use a notebook like I'm doing and just glue them on, you can. It just says first then. So first can be, first we're going to brush our teeth, then we're going to eat breakfast, like in the morning. And some people will say, well, no, why would you do that? I'm going to eat breakfast first and then I'm going to brush my teeth. Fine. Do it the other way. Put first breakfast, then brush teeth. I don't care. I have both of them up there because no one's judging you. You do your family way the way you want to, right? So first breakfast, then brush teeth. Okay, fine. See, there's nothing, neither of those is a reward. They're just things you do. But you could also have, like, flip the chart and have the next layer. And then you could have, first we're going to do iPad and then we're going to watch television. You see what I mean? Two things that are pretty, like, a lot of people would think of them as treats. But the thing is that human beings, you shouldn't just use a behavior model for talking about humans. I really recommend looking into cognitive behavioral models if you're going to look at things, because we actually do think, and if you look back at the order of attention, we're much more complex beings, right? You want to get attention. And one of the things that you're going to do is engage attention on what people like. Now, you don't have to, that doesn't mean you reward them. It means that you just engage them at all times. So you're going to build on what people like for your modeling. But when it comes to first then, what you're trying to do is get them through the day and manage the cognitive load. So if I don't know what I'm supposed to do next, like, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? What am I doing right now? No, right now I'm sitting in my beanbag chair. But the next thing I'm going to do is play with my Legos. Well, that's what you do. It doesn't mean that I don't like playing in my beanbag chair and Legos are a reward. It just means I don't know what to do next. You see what I mean? It's much more basic. I guess I'm just trying to say it's much more universal and human. Don't treat this like you're training a pet monkey. Because I think sometimes, and I'm not trying to be rude here, but sometimes, especially the behavior therapist type people, will sort of dehumanize. And that's a real problem. And if you look at the autistic community, people who have survived uh, that kind of therapeutic environment tend to have a lot of bad experiences with it, or tend to not like that approach because there's a tendency to dehumanize. Now, that does not mean your therapist is that way. And I think even a good therapist who doesn't dehumanize in general can sometimes accidentally do that. They're just thinking about behavior so much that they're too narrowly focused and not thinking about human development. Because um, like a dog, I love my dog. I could train him to do certain things, but he's never going to become human. He's going to be a dog. But human beings, when you're building on a human brain, we have much more plastic brains. They heal, they develop, they grow. And so if you're building growth, and you're building cognitive pathways that are much more complex. And over time, you can develop, you're going to be teaching a skill set. So, like, this skill set at first then, it's not just something for nonverbal autistic kids with low cognitive ability who just started out, which is usually a lot of times I think how it's seen, like, oh, we just had to tell them what to do. It's not some sort of punishment or a weird thing. This is awesome for, like, people with ADHD, people who just have a lot of tasks to manage. You're just, sometimes whenever you are an adult and you're used to it, you no longer verbalize it. First, I'm going to do this, then this. But if you think about your day, you usually do that. You're like, okay, first I'm going to drink my coffee. I'm going to finish my coffee. Then I'm going to run the laundry. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to do this. And you have a lot more thens, right? But first, then, it's just a cognitive load manager. It's neutral. It is good for all humans at all stages of development. So please do not just use it as a reward and punishment system, because that is not what it is. Now, can you sometimes tell yourself or tell your family member, "Oh, let's do this hard thing first, and then we'll do the less hard thing." Well, sure. First, I'm gonna mow the grass, and then I'm going to play in the kiddie pool. Okay, fine, whatever. You can do those things, and that's your decision, though. That it should not be the only way you use a first then chart. Because if you do that, then what you're actually going to wind up teaching someone is that the first then chart is a punishment. They're gonna think, "Oh, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to manipulate me into doing something that I don't want to do." Okay. Which is exactly what you would be doing if you used it that way. So don't use it that way. Use it in general for a cognitive load manager as long as your family needs it. Eventually, what we did for our kids who need it first, then for a while, is we added first, then next, or first, then last, but usually first, then next. And then what we did from there is just to like they were able to eventually generalize and just say what comes next. And whenever they got to that point, we didn't have to use the first then, but sometimes we still do. So it's a cognitive load manager. If you're really stressed out, if you've got a lot going on, it can be really helpful to have a first then. Especially if you have like, I know holidays, no one's really getting together right now because of the pandemic, which good, God deliver us from the pandemic. It's horrible. But whenever you do get back together, if you come across this video later or remember this later, if you have a family member who's overwhelmed by groups or crowds, but you're having a family gathering at your house, and you can say, first say hi to Graham, then you go to your beanbag quiet space. Like, or first we're going to um, light the candles, or light the Christmas tree, and then we're going to open presents. Or first we're going to eat, then presents. Or first presents, then cuddle time, or whatever. You can just use it to help people know, but in that case, with the eye on what you can do, like what you can do, not like I like to use visual schedules um, to move people through space to know what to do with their bodies. So that's, but in a neutral way. It's not like, okay, so for instance, this is a much more complicated visual schedule, but it's one that I have on hand. I have a liturgy visual schedule that I made for the Orthodox Church liturgy, and this is on my website too. There's nothing on here. These things are not, oh, I've got to get through this part before I can get to this part. No, they're just telling you where you are and what you're doing so you can figure out where you are, right? Because there is kind of there's obviously a high point in this service is number 25 when people go to communion. That's a really big deal, but none of this is stated in a non-neutral way. But everything that is stated is a movement or something that you can pay attention to because it's something you could touch. So I would just make sure to do that and use it as cognitive load managing. So that is on my website. I've got, I don't know exactly how many, I'm guessing like 30 or so, maybe more than that. I did this over the course of about an hour and a half. I just went through and came up, like brainstormed whatever came to mind and made first thens for it. So I don't really remember how long it is. And since my printer didn't work, I can't just look at it. So that's what I wanted to tell you about today. First of all, buttons, targeted buttons telling you so that your family member can tell you what they need. What they need, or if they need help, and you model it too. So if you can find something that everyone likes, like if you all drink tea or coffee, you can have a button that says coffee or a button that says tea, and then you press it too, and it goes, you press it and it will say, have you record it? Time for tea or something like that. And you get some tea, and then you can go to the person who is nonverbal, and you could say, would you like some tea? And then you can push the button, and if they push the button, you can say, oh, do you want some tea? And then that can be their way of saying yes, they want some too, and you bring it to them. So, or y'all all, or they get it themselves, whatever their ability level is. So you like find something targeted and use these. They're great. You could also put them up around the house depending on your like level of what you need. A help button is great. The I want to play button can be helpful. You can use these for books. You can use them for a targeted item that someone needs. And you could use it to help somebody participate in a family ritual. If you say something together, usually, but they cannot speak or they're having a hard time remembering the words, you can use one of these longer recording buttons for that. So buttons. The second thing, make a same foods chart on your fridge with some pictures of their favorite foods. or if it's not on your refrigerator, on your pantry door, or wherever you keep the snacks, they're most common foods. That is gonna relieve a lot of stress because it's really hard if you're hungry. Think about whether even if you're neurotypical, you can kind of lose your wherewithal when you're really hungry, right? So this is great. It helps to eliminate um, that sort of anxiety about wanting to get something to eat when you're really hungry. So they can point at the button at that, and maybe you want to put a verbal button with it so you hear it that says, "Hey, I need help. I need food help," or something. And then you hear that and you come, or a light. There's also things that have blinking lights that may be more helpful if you can see but not hear. If so, I hope you can understand this. That my auto captions are good enough. And you can do that also, but those things don't tend to record. They will just make a sound and a bright light. So that's another option for you there. So buttons, same foods chart, and then the flip visual schedule that's just first then. First then is the simplest version. And then, of course, build up from there if your family member is able to follow sequences. Do a simple sequence of, you know, break down the visual schedules into smaller parts. Like put a bedtime one in the bedroom, put the bathroom one in the bathroom, have one just for brushing teeth, have one just for um, if you have to leave the house for school. What do you need for school? Do you need shoes, backpack, lunch? Then put shoes, backpack, lunch, or jacket, or something like that. Just put that on up there. Don't put down every little thing you have to do because that's way too overwhelming. But to start with, a first then. Hope that makes some sense to you. I know it was kind of a lot of information, but as I have discovered from talking to people, the quality of interventions out there in therapy and education is incredibly variable. And so I don't want to leave this out in case you didn't know. It would be hard. I would feel bad if I had left out something that I have been privileged to learn that then I didn't pass on. So I'm trying to share everything with you. Thank you for joining me. And once again, I'm Summer Kennard, and Our Autistic Home is the book, and it is coming out probably in January. I'm still working on writing the rest of it, but this video series is going to be ongoing. So please go ahead and subscribe. And I'll probably do them as lives because I do not have time right now to edit things. So you're just going to get me, and then I will do the web post, blog post on my website telling you the resources that I mentioned. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend and a good week. Talk to you all later.